All right. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. Welcome to another episode of V Bailey's Ask a Black Woman. This evening is episode 6. Can you believe it? 6 episodes so far.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. And we're super excited about this evening's show presented by the HBCU Lounge Network. And we are discussing mental illness in relationships. And we have three beautiful experts that are going to help us dive into the topic. And so I want to go ahead and introduce the ladies and let them tell us a little bit about what they do. And then we can dive into this topic. Hello. We got Isaiah in the building. Well, I just want to go ahead and introduce Miss Denise Lancaster Young. Denise, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do in your background?
I'm a trained social worker, and my career expands over several decades of experience. I hold a master's degree in social work with the emphasis in mental health. I'm currently a practitioner, an associate mental health clinical social worker practitioner, and I specialize working with African American population. I find myself to be an expert on that. Also, I work with trauma victims, adolescent males, and formerly incarcerated individuals. And my modality is psychotherapy and EMDR and brain spotting.
Awesome.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, so welcome. We're so happy to have you. And Miss Brittany Renee, if you could just let us know a little bit about you and your background.
Well, my name is Brittany Gooch. Instagram handle is Brittany Renee, but I have been in the mental health space for about 5 years now. I own several clinics in Las Vegas and in Arizona. I work with Division of Child Safety, so we work also with a lot of trauma, substance abuse, LGBTQ support and awareness, anti-bullying, suicide prevention, things like that. And I work with children and adults. And so just building and trying to make a difference.
Yes, okay. Woo.
Y'all
We're so glad to
fancy.
have- I know. I mean, how wonderful is that? Just having these, people in our community, Black women in our community that are really just giving back and helping us get the support, that a lot of us need and don't know we need it, but it's just amazing to know that those wonderful resources are right here in our own community. So thank you so much for that. We're so glad to have you. And Miss Kristen, we're so glad to have you. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do.
Awesome. I'm Kristen Denise Hemingway. So on all socials, I'm Kristen Denise. I am just a mental health advocate. I'm a person with a mental health diagnosis that I have shared publicly for the last 3 years to encourage people to get the help that they need. I wrote a blog post called The Altar and the Couch because I'm a person from a community of faith. And a lot of people are like, I'll just pray about it. I'm like, okay, well, pray that God sends you to the right therapist, right? While you're praying. And just really promoting self-care as a method of helping to maintain your mental health and reducing the stigma around mental health disorders, mental health challenges. Like I said, I am the face of depression and anxiety, and it's still a beautiful face. Right. And so just helping people understand that it doesn't necessarily look like what you think it will look like. It's not necessarily always active. And there are many ways we can support our friends and that we as people with diagnoses can support ourselves in ensuring that we are still living our best possible life because my life is good. OK,
yes,
my life is
right.
My life is full of love and I'm still depressed.
And that's so important for us, to know and for people to have that level of vulnerability because, it's like your story, just like, many of ours in different areas, you just never know who is going to be inspired by your story and by your level of vulnerability and just who that's going to be a blessing to or who that's going to be the light bulb that goes off, that says, okay, I can, get through this. So thank you so much, for your willingness, to be open and transparent with us today. Well, thank you so much, ladies. We're so happy to have you. And wanted to kind of go into this. So the topic is mental illness and relationships. And so as we know, this is there's a stigma, as Kristen mentioned, and it's not really a topic that, in our community that we openly discuss or want to even, consider it for a minute that, okay, there might be something going on. I might need help, and it's something that, Kristen says, sometimes it's like, okay, pray it away or whatever. And it's just like, well, yes, I believe in prayer. I believe that prayer has gotten me through my whole life. And so I definitely am a believer in prayer, but also, like you said, praying about sending the right people in your life or sending you, to the right therapist or the right person that, may act as a therapist. Because a lot of times there are people who are in our lives who are, in a way, our own personal therapist. And sometimes that works. And sometimes you need to go see a real professional. And so I wanted us to talk about this because in the Black community, a lot of times we shy away from going, to seek, therapy. And so this conversation needs to be discussed. And so I wanted to kind of go into some of the stats that I thought were, pretty shocking. And so according to Mental Health America, 13.4% of U.S. population, which is nearly 46 million people, identified themselves to be Black or African American. With that, it is about, an additional 2.7% identified to be multiracial. And out of that number, 16%, which is 7 million, report having mental illness in the last year. So that is a large number, 7 million that actually report that they had a mental illness of some sort, right? And then in 2018, 58% of Black and African American young adults between the ages of 18 and 25, and then 50.1% of adults between the ages of 26 and 49 had a serious mental illness and did not receive treatment. Then nearly 90% of Black and African American people over the ages of 12 had substance use disorder and did not receive treatment. So these numbers are very high. I was shocked just by the numbers of that actually reported that they had mental illness. And so then we go to 50 and 58%, of people who are, suffering and are not receiving treatment. And so it's very interesting, I asked the question or posed a question, people who have they dated someone with mental illness, and what that looked like, what worked, what didn't work. And it was just very interesting that a lot of people who have not or think that they haven't, dealt with anyone with mental illness. And that is false, because with these numbers being so high, it's a good chance that you're either going to date, or marry someone with a mental illness, because we're, so, unaware about it. So the stats, are remarkable of how many African Americans and Black, citizens suffer from mental illness. And even more concerning, the ones that are going untreated and undiagnosed. So I wanted to ask you ladies, if we can go ahead and dig into this. What do you guys think about these stats? I would like to go to you first, Brittany. What do you think about these stats?
They are very, very alarming, very much so. And I like to say that mental health right now is very trendy, because there's just so much around it. But there were also so many stigmas with getting treatment and getting therapy, right? So with these numbers and seeing how alarming they are, if people knew that there were more services or resources available, then I believe that there wouldn't be so much police brutality, because a lot of that transcends from mental illness, and also a lot of these police are not well trained with people that have mental illnesses. So, I think those numbers are very alarming, and even the high ones, people who have been diagnosed. I think that we just have to keep on just breaking these walls down, right? And just keep on, educating our people that it's okay if you have that illness, but it's even better to go get help, right? It's even better to start that healing journey so that you can be at peace and not in pieces, because I just see so many of us, dying. There's so many murders in the Black families because so many have been undiagnosed with mental illness, and so it's not until someone is being buried that it comes out that this person was suffering from a mental illness. So very alarming.
Well, yes, that is very true. I noticed that as well. I used to live in Austin, Texas, and I think we had a couple of situations where, they wanted to kind of give the cops a little bit more training because, of the situation that had happened, where they had a call and, the person had a mental illness and they didn't know how to deal with them and risk, taking someone's life who was trying to, help because they understood mental illness. And so that's so important for cops, who are out here protecting, to serve and protect their community, to understand that, individuals with mental illness are a part of that community as well, and so it's very important, to get that, education with these, especially with these numbers being so high. Denise, what did you have to say about these numbers being so high? It's crazy.
Well, I think it's point on, because we as African American people, we radically accept our position here in this society. And what I mean by radically accept, we don't even associate ourselves with having these defects because of the fact that we have so many other issues that we have to be concerned with: housing, food, just living day to day. Most of our people are still in poverty. So there's just still a small percentage of our people that are elevating. And if you're not mentally well, you can't not become financially well. And so often people think, wow, why are, Black people always, their voices are loud? Why are they always doing these gestures? When you come from hundreds of years of slavery, and that slave mentality is inside you from generations after generations, you just start accepting. You accept this as a norm. And we've always gone to the church. And many of the churches still do not believe in mental health. They believe that you pray. And like Kristen Denise stated, supplication is important. It's very important. And Brittany, I just love those words. You said, in peace and not pieces. We are not in peace. We are in pieces as a community. So it's not just an individual, it's the community. When your community isn't stable, you're not stable because that's your village.
Right. That's true.
And so often when our individuals go before the judicial board, one of the things, they don't get mental health treatment like our allies do. They go straight to incarcerated. They're incarcerated in prison, juvenile hall, etc., whatever. And they just become even more traumatized. So we have a history of just radically accepting things. And we don't even realize that we have that rock up on our shoulder that's weighing us down. So it's much deeper than, I know this is a trend that's going on right now, but the trend wasn't set up for us. It was set up for them. We're just learning how to take advantage of it. And a few, as you see the statistics stated last year, and we all know that it was COVID, But even before COVID, those numbers were alarming
Mm-hmm.
and detrimental to our community. And like you stated, when a police officer come out, we're acting irrational as far as they're concerned. And often we're left harmed. So I guess the thing is, what are we going to do to help our community and the individuals in our community?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So important to be willing to, say, okay, we got to do the work, no one else is going to come in and do it for us, and protect, our community better than us. I mean, it should be that way, that we, feel that sense of pride. And so I'm glad that the conversations are happening a little bit more, to get comfortable with the idea, but we're still a long way away from what we need to, and embracing mental health checks. So, yes, Kristen, and what do you think about these numbers? I mean, being a part of that community, how do you feel about it?
I think they're underreported, honestly. Like, to be very clear, I think they're underreported. There are people who I'm really high functioning, right? That is my gift and my curse, right? I'm very high functioning. I present really well. I actually look really, really good when I'm doing my worst a lot of times, because I'm like, I won't feel bad and look bad. I'm a pick a struggle. I'm not going to pick both, right? So, because I present well and I'm high functioning, there are people who will kind of sweep the things that I say under the rug. Or like, one of the things I tell people, if someone is telling you I don't have it, the best response is not saying, oh, yes, you do. No, I don't. Right. And we have to be comfortable with people being honest about where they are. And we have to be comfortable with understanding that our strong friends, or, it doesn't present the way that we think it does. I'm not necessarily somewhere in a corner rocking and crying. Now I have those moments. Like, I'm not going to front. I was crying the other day, just driving home, and I just started crying. Right. But there was nobody there with me to see that. And so then I can get on camera and look like this, or I can go to campus, I'm in grad school, and look like this. And if I tell you, hey, I'm not doing the best today, like, one, you need to be comfortable hearing that, because every day is not a good day, and let's let false positivity go. That's one. Two, we have to give people space to just be where they are and not try to push them somewhere else really fast. Like, help people deal with what they're dealing with. Like, you can ask questions. Hey, is there something that happened that like pushed you to this place today? Because sometimes it's situational. You could have had a bad morning. Something could have happened at work. You could have had a fight with your boo. Like, whatever. Your kids could have been crazy. Right. You could remember the loved one that you lost. Sometimes there is no trigger. That's a part of having that diagnosis. There's not always a trigger for me. Right. There are just some days that nothing happened on October 1st other than the day being October 1st. And I felt this weight and this sadness, and I had to cry. Like, we need to be able to ask people questions and feel comfortable. And asking people, do you know how I can support you? Do you know how you want me to show up for you in this moment? Sometimes I tell my friends, I just want you here. Don't talk to me, because I don't need to hear anything. You can't fix me. I'm not broken in that way. I don't need to be fixed. I just need support as I go through this moment. So if you ask, how can I help you? I'll tell you. Yes, you can, if you come sit with me, or can I just come to your house and be distracted by your kids, because it helps get my mind off of what I'm dealing with. Is there a way I can serve you? Because sometimes serving other people reminds me that even while I need a lot, I have a lot to offer still. Like, be okay with talking to people, letting people be honest, really, really honest about where they are, and stop trying to make people feel bad about that honesty. Because what you can do is make people start questioning themselves and make people start feeling crazy. Like, my life is good, so why am I sad? As if the two things are mutually exclusive. They're not. Right.
Well, that right. And that, I guess, in a sense, that can turn into gaslighting and make people feel comfortable reporting that, like what we're talking about is that being under reported, thing, and that is preventing them from getting the help that they may need, obviously, because it's going untreated. And there are other things that are in the way of that prevent them from reporting these things, because we have different stigmas in our own family. Like, well, don't want to report this, and then it's going to go on your record, and and so it's just
listen, have a record versus having a funeral.
That's true. That is true. That is a good
have
point.
a record versus having a funeral. Like we are pushing people deeper into dark spaces and by themselves. Don't do that. Be more. You would rather be comfortable with the silence and with the diagnosis than with the death. And that's what's happening to a lot of people. Suicide rates are going through the roof because people aren't listening to their children. They're not listening to their sisters and brothers and their parents. And so when you get backed into that kind of dark corner and you can't talk to anybody, and the only voice you got are the ones that are in your head, and they might not be the right ones, then what do you do? Where do you go for help? And so some people, they're like, I just got to get quiet however I can. And for some of them, that is making that final decision of suicide. And we are seeing suicide rates increase drastically in the Black community. And that's because people don't have healthy, safe places to be vulnerable and to be real. Again, I don't need you to fix me. I'm not broken in that way. But sometimes I need a friend to remind me of how to get help. And I'll give this very real example from the beginning of the pandemic. I've been in therapy for the last 4 years almost. But I missed an appointment and I already didn't have the next one scheduled. So I got out of cycle with my therapist, right? And I was getting sadder and sadder because we're in this pandemic. I lived alone at the time. We don't know what's happening in the world. My birthday's coming. I can't do nothing. I can't go nowhere. People are dying left and right. I am super duper isolated. And one of my dearest friends, I will love her forever in general, but especially because of this, she kept asking me, have you reached out to your therapist? And I just couldn't get the strength to do it. And one day she said, I'll sit on the phone with you till you send the email. And I sent the email, and that is what got me back into regular therapy appointments. But if I couldn't be honest about where I was with her, or when I told her I'm feeling really down, like I'm feeling really sad, I had an anxiety attack, and she was like, oh, but you'll be okay. It's just the pandemic. Everybody's dealing with something. I might not be here to have this conversation.
And that, see, and it's so important that, that we're having this conversation. And, someone just said in the audience just a moment ago that sometimes it's just important to someone being there. And yes, thank you, love. Oh, even the children are committing suicide. Yes, there was some stats that I read on that, making it okay to be open. Yeah, and not just pushing them. Oh, be strong, toughen up. All that kind of thing. You mentioned it. Yeah, I looked at the numbers of children that were committing, suicide. And I just thought it was like so much information. I don't want to just jump all over the place, but it was alarming. And literally, I actually started to tear up to see that, because it was just wild, as little as 6 years old. 6 years old. And they were saying it was actually a higher percentage for little Black girls. And that was just bullying. It was just amazing, to know that's going on. My heart bleeds all the time. Like I see some situation that's going on and I see someone in pain or going through, things, and I'm like, all over it. Like, let me pray, let me hug you, let me, be there, let me this. And it's just like, it's something that there are this many children, because these numbers are low. When we're talking about between the ages of 18 and 49, like these are the years that you're supposed to be building and, considering creating a family and things of that nature. And it's just like, you are in pieces, as Brittany mentioned, you're in pieces and you're really supposed to do that and do it well, and then when we think about before they even get to that point, you're depressed at 6 years old. 6. Like it's, I mean,
I work in education. School can be really hard. And if you don't create regular opportunities for conversation and even changing some of the questions that we ask, don't ask people how you're doing. Ask people, how does your heart feel? That's a different kind of question. It's a different level of consideration. Did anything make you sad today? And like really digging in and making and reframing our understanding of strength. It is much stronger to say I need help than it is to pretend as if you don't. Right. And helping people to understand that silence doesn't make you strong. It just makes you quiet.
Quiet and sad. I totally get that. Well, that brings me to our next question, to discuss the difference between mental health and mental illness. because I think that there's so much that we don't know. And there's, just because, like you're stating, Kristen, that we're not having the conversations as much as we need to have them, so that people feel safe enough to discuss these things. And so they don't know the difference. You know how that goes in our community. We got bunch of different names for stuff. We call in, actual diagnosis. We got nicknames for diagnosis. Like, there are some people who don't even know what sugar diabetes is. They just call it the sugar, So we need to have conversations so we can properly educate, each other and understand what it is that we're talking about, so we can understand how serious it is. So, Brittany, if you can tell us a little bit about what is the difference between mental health and mental illness. And I'll give you
Okay. Mental health is your actual well-being, right? So your emotions, your feelings, how you are coping with different things, able to problem solve. Mental illness is an actual diagnosis, and that affects the way that people feel, behave, interact with others. It's a big difference, right? Although you may not ever be diagnosed with a mental illness, you definitely, some part of your life will struggle with your mental well-being, right? Just because life comes with triumph sometimes, and some things are out of our control. So that can cause a shaking of your mental health, right? But mental illness is more of a diagnosis, and how it affects the way that people think or feel or behave or interact with others. So definitely a big difference.
So good. And Denise, did you want to touch on that?
It's just pretty much ditto. Yeah, it's pretty much ditto. With mental well-being, it's just you have the ability to solve problems, overcome difficulties, or social connections, and understanding the world around you. Where the mental disorder, as Brittany stated, it affects the way that you think, you feel, you behave, how you interact. Also, there's many different mental illnesses that can be diagnosed. And there's different symptoms that impact people's lives in different ways. So mental health, you would need to see a professional, and they can provide you with the clinical diagnosis, and a psychiatrist can prescribe medication to help treat the illness. And I would like to say that for clarity, because a lot of times people think going to your therapist, LMFT or LCSW, that they can provide you with medication. No, we cannot. We can provide you with the emotional side and the diagnosis, being able to listen to you, hear you, help you navigate this process. But a psychiatrist is the only one that can, or your medical doctor can provide you with medication. And oftentimes people do need that medication to treat themselves, to be treated, to maintain a balance. And it's okay.
Right.
Often we're afraid to take it. We'll feel better for a moment once we take it a couple of times, and then we don't take it anymore, and those symptoms come back. And that's when people start using other things to try to counteract that feeling. In California, the big thing is right now is the medicinal. So people are on it. Oh, this year, hey, this works. But you're doing 18 blunts a day, and you're angry. You're angry. Everybody's telling you the same thing. You're angry. So doing 18 blunts a day and not taking medication, okay, you're acting irrational. You're screaming. You're yelling. There's a high probability that something's going to happen to you.
Right. So you're saying sometimes you're needing something more than the CBD.
Well, yes, you do.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, people do use CBD, and it can work for a while. But when you have a diagnosis, it's best to let the medical expert help you, and make that decision. Ultimately, it's your decision as an adult to children don't have that right. Well, let's take that back. In California, 12 and over, they have a right. They can say yes or no to medication.
Yeah. That, I'm sorry. I think I heard, who was that?
It was Kristen.
Kristen. Okay. Yes, Kristen. What you wanted to add something to that?
Just a little bit. I would say make sure you get a therapist who understands where you are, right? And what you are interested in. So like I said, I've been with my therapist for almost 4 years. And at no point in this time have I taken medication. It came back on the table this year because this cycle of depression has lasted longer. Right. And so this is a conversation that will be coming up again. We put a time period on it. Like, if, hey, we're going to try these other things, these other modalities, because she understands in general. And it's not just because of this. Like, she understands in general. I don't like taking none of the medicine I have to take for anything because I just don't like medicine. But I trust her, right? We have an established relationship. She has worked with me through these other modalities. Like, that's the point of therapy. Even the comment you made earlier, I have amazing friends. Like I told you, my friend is part of why I was able to get back into therapy when I fell off. But what my friends don't have is the training. And what my friends don't have is the ability to actually diagnose. And what my friends don't have are the tools that have been able to help me maintain without medication for as long as I've been able to, right? My therapist has that, and it's worth it. You're not paying for a friend. You're not paying for someone to talk to. You're paying for a trained professional to give you tools and help you to make it through whatever it is you need to make it through, whatever your diagnosis may be. So don't be afraid to do that. One. And then two, make sure they understand up front, what are your thoughts on medication? What are your thoughts on these different modalities and things? And she's really helped me with that. My homework for my last appointment was, what does your self-care plan look like now in this new season of life? Because you've had a lot of things happening. What you were doing before is not necessarily working. So what are we going to do moving forward? Right. And a part of that for me in this season may include medication. And I'm okay with that because she's respected my boundaries and the things I wanted to try. And we've tried them to see if they could work. And while they have worked, we also recognize they're not working the same way. So be okay with all of that. Like, be okay with all of it.
Right. And that's awesome. An awesome point. You know, that's so important to find someone that you do feel comfortable with, because obviously we're talking about how in our community, we're not running to go get a therapist. And so it's, you know, super important to find someone that you feel comfortable with, you feel safe with, being your 110% self, you know, so that you can get the help and the, you know, support that you need. So I think that's very important. And we, a lot of times, you know, are talking about, self, you know, mental health, and we're, you know, out, you know, at the spa and stuff. And that's cool. I think that's a good piece of self-care, but self-care and self-love also is in making sure that you're mentally well, you know, and just monitoring that, doing check-ins with yourself, so that it doesn't turn into, you know, something else that you can't really navigate. Because I'm thinking, you know, with mental health, if you're not checking in on your mental health and there's things that are going on with you and you're not really monitoring that, it could turn into a mental illness, correct? Like, couldn't you develop a mental illness? Maybe not something that might be like genetic or anything like that, but depression, you know, that's mental illness. And if you got a lot going on and you're not taking those time, you know, to check on yourself or even check on, you know, those that are around you, then couldn't it turn into that? I mean, I'm just curious. I'm not the professional. But Brittany, is that something that can turn into mental illness or, mental illness, depression?
Exactly. Depression is a diagnosis, right? So if you are not checking on your well-being and you're not aware of the self-help or the self-care or, you know, any of those things that you may need, it certainly can turn into a mental illness, right? Being depressed for so long, right? Then that's where the suicidal ideations come in, and that's where you start to get into your own head and you know, all of those unhealthy things, right? So as Kristen stated, you know, having that therapist who has the tools and who has the education and who is the expert in that sense is definitely needed. I think that often we think that we're just okay, right? And like Miss Denise said, you know, a lot of the times it's in our generation, it's in our DNA, right? It goes back to slavery. We have been taught that you're okay, you're strong, you got this, and that's not always the case. We don't always have it, right? I'm in the mental health field and I have several clinics, but I'm also a published author, and I talk about the scars I hid behind a smile, because I grew up in a great family, but unfortunately there were things that we dealt with as a family that was very detrimental to my well-being, right? And so it wasn't until I faced those things and I was able to get the help that I needed, because like said, it turned into a depression for me. It turned into suicidal ideations for me, because it was just easier for me to say, no, I don't want to deal with this. It's too much. It's too much to bear. So it's definitely something that you have to pay attention to, because these things get heavy. They get very heavy. And you know, often I've been seeing check on your strong friends, right? Which is something scary, you know, those burdens of other people themselves, and we just kind of, you know, self-medicate, whether that's spending excessive amount of money, you know, just different things. But definitely it can absolutely turn into a mental illness.
No, that's so true. And it's interesting that you had said that, because I posed a question and just talking to different groups that I'm a part of on Facebook as well. And, you know, put that question out there about mental illness and dating. And this young lady, she was just stating that she, you know, had mental illness and suffers too from PTSD. She was an ex-military and things like that. And she was just talking about how sometimes like her husband will have to come and just like get like literally help remove her from the bed, because she'll just be in the bed and she's just like, I don't want to move, you know, like I'm just going to stay here for the day. And, you know, she's like, well, he has to remove the phone, you know, from me, because I'll be doing my retail, you know, therapy, you know, just shopping away, just shopping away. And one of my, and I was like, wow, I was like thinking about, you know, at one point in time, you said that, huh?
Emotional shopping.
Emotional, yeah. And we, you know, we do that, you know, and that's the thing is, we're so used to sweeping things under the rug. We don't know if we actually are going through something. And that's the reason why our behavior has been, you know, changing lately. Maybe you're just buying stuff and you just don't even know why. Like you're not going nowhere, but you're just buying up a bunch of stuff. You're like, is something going on? You know, you got to check in. And a friend of mine who was actually, we spoke, and I actually was inspired by a lot of the things that I was learning from him, and that, you know, he has, you know, suffers from bipolar, and he shared some stories with me, and I was just, I couldn't believe it, but he was just saying a lot of times they sync up with addiction, you know, too, that you know, get addicted to maybe shopping, you know, excessive shopping, you know, addicted to even sex, you know, or addicted to some, you know, type of drugs. And I had no idea that there was any, you know, correlation, but it kind of makes sense, because if you do something to cope with this illness, right, and it gets your mind off of it for a little while, or it makes you feel better temporarily, and you're tired of feeling the way that you've been feeling, depressed, sad, you know, emotional, or just all over the place, you're going to say, well, I'm gonna do that again, you know. And then if it is something that, you know, has the capability for you to become addicted to it, then that's that. You know, you are going to be addicted to it because it is soothing you. You know, it is your way that you're coping, you know, with this issue, because you don't have those healthy tools of how to, you know, cope and navigate, you know, through it. And so it was very interesting to me. And he also shared a story, and I think it can kind of tie into this this next question, but he was stating to me that, you know, he was dating a young lady and she was aware of his illness, that he had bipolar, right? Bipolar depression. And, you know, he, you know, has done research for himself so that he can, you know, take ownership and really be accountable for, you know, his part in his health, his mental health. And so he shared with her, very honest, you know, their whole, you know, relationship. And so they ended up moving, you know, together and moving away from his family. And within the relationship, she kind of used his illness against him. Like there were certain things that he was, you know, questioning, you know, and she would tell him, no, you know, that's just, you know, like maybe you just need to, like, you know, take your medicine, and, you know, and maybe it's just, you know, the bipolar that's kicking in, you know, gaslighting him with his condition. And that was just so heartbreaking, because he was actually, you know, on point and aware, you know, and it was just like, you're trying to make this person feel crazy, you know, when you already know that that's possibly a trigger, you know, and that this person is going through these things, but instead of being honest about what you're doing, you're like, oh, no, you got that wrong. That's just your illness talking, you know? And I'm just like, it's just crazy that people, you know, can do that, fully aware of knowing that this person is battling with something. Like, this is kind of how people, you know, get triggered in violence could end up happening, right? Because you are playing with this person, and you're not loving them, you know, like that's not love. You don't use someone's illness against them, or use someone's secrets against them. You know what I mean? And so, that leads me into the next, you know, question, with the mental illness, you know, being undiagnosed, misdiagnosed. How is it that, and we talked about how there's a good chance that you may be dating or marry someone who has mental illness. How do you navigate, you know, a relationship with someone who is suffering from mental illness? Ms. Denise, if you can tell us a little bit about what's your insight on that. How do you navigate a relationship with someone who is suffering from mental illness?
First of all, I want to say, I would just like to clarify gaslighting, because everyone in the audience may not really know what that means.
Thank you.
Gaslighting is a form of emotional abuse that's seen in abusive relationships. It's the act of manipulating a person by forcing them to question their thoughts, memories, and the events occurring around them. A victim of gaslighting can be pushed so far they question their own sanity. And we do see that often in relationships. And be black or white, it really just doesn't matter. It just happens in relationships without people knowing, especially in the Black community, because we don't associate abuse unless someone is physically harming you, hitting you.
Very true.
We don't really realize or see the difference, because we have not been taught that our emotions can lead to abusive situations, and it can cause a person to be abused emotionally. And so I would think that one of the things you have to do is really be careful about what you say, and really work hard on not using what a person shares with you intimately against them. And that happens so often in so many relationships. And you will see that, you know, it can start as early as high school, junior high school. You tell that secret to one person that you think really care about you, and you believe, and that person makes you believe that they're your only friend. But when you start showing some independence, that person tries to bring you back in. And they'll start using things. They may start using things against you. Just remember, if someone is using something against you, that's not love. Love doesn't feel that way.
It's very true.
I'm not saying it does not happen in marriages. I've been married over 38 years. So, hey, we all are guilty of that.
Mm-hmm.
But when it becomes excessive, it's not okay. It's never okay. Now, you may have that spare of a moment that one time,
Mm-hmm.
but on a continuous basis, it can really destroy a person.
Mm.
It lowers their self-esteem. It can start making them retreat and become introverted to the point where they don't even want to live anymore.
Right. That's
Now,
so
I'm
true.
not saying you're responsible for a person's feelings, because everyone has their own feelings and they're responsible for getting help for themselves. But to utilize tools that they have given you or share with you is never okay.
Very true. He said repetitive emotional injury is due to what was that? Let me see.
The misattunement of others.
I mean, that topic,
It's
it's
heavy.
interesting. Yeah, it is heavy because a lot of times people don't realize that they're not well and that they project and they manipulate, they do gaslight, and they cause a lot of pain in other people's life that they, claim that they love. And I think that's why this education is so important, because you might find out, maybe you're not suffering from mental illness, but you might find out someone that you were dealing with and it was undiagnosed, and that they are, since they don't have the tools or any help or support around them, that they're taking a lot of that out on you. A lot of times we experience that with our family members, people that, we love, that been in our lives, since we were children. And so we hang on to them, but we're not helping. You know what I mean? We're not helping. And I think that that's very important, is to try and educate yourself as much as possible, because you need to do that for you, just so that you're healthy and whole. And those people around you, can be that. Either you can be that safe space, or, being that for yourself, educating yourself. How can one effectively recommend someone to go to therapy when it's obvious that they need it? That is true.
Can I say something to that as a
yes,
a lay person, right?
Okay.
I am very open and honest about my own journey, so people know when I'm saying it, it's not like a catty little statement like, "Oh, you need therapy." Well, don't do that, right? I recommend things in moments that are not highly emotional, because to say it in the middle of a fight or an argument can be triggering. Like, "Oh, you trying to say I'm crazy?" Well, no, but I want you to get some help. And having just honest conversations. Have you ever considered therapy? Have you been to therapy? Have you ever talked to someone who's been to therapy? Would you like to talk to someone about their experience in therapy? This is something that I think could help. And I bring it up. People think I'm a therapist because of how much I bring up therapy. I'm like, no, but I have benefited greatly from therapy. And I think, and I ask people, do you go to the doctor? Do you go to the dentist? What are the things you do to maintain your health? Therapy is not crisis mode. I mean, it helps in crisis. Ask me how I know, right? But it is there even when I'm not in crisis. It's just like going to my regular doctor's appointments. I'm diabetic. It's like going to my endocrinologist. So I advocate for it as a part of your regular healthcare. I tell people, go check in once a quarter, because you have an established relationship with someone. That way, if something is off because of their training, they can see it before it gets bad. Right. Exactly. I want to avoid crisis. So because I want to avoid crisis, I do wellness. And I ask people, do you want to be well? Because if you're telling me you want to be well, here are all the places where wellness matters. There's mental wellness, there's physical wellness, right? There's emotional wellness, there's financial wellness, there's spiritual wellness. So let's work on what we need to do to be well everywhere, not just in the places where we feel comfortable, and having that conversation in that softer way as a part of total wellness, because I care about you as a person, not related to a specific incident. It makes people way more receptive. And then I offer help. I'll say, I'll help you find a therapist. Like, these are the tools that I use. I found my therapist on therapyforblackgirls.com, and me and Takesha been rocking ever since, right? Go to Psychology Today. Like, these are different things. You check with your employee assistance program, and I will hold your hand through that process so you don't feel alone, so you don't feel overwhelmed, because I want to see you well. And when people trust that you want to see them well, they're more apt to listen to what you're saying.
Definitely. No, you're 100% right on that. I think that along with it, with what he asked, sometimes you needing therapy and you're aware of it makes a person maybe a little bit more open to talk to you, because you're able to share and be vulnerable. It's like, you know what, I need therapy and I plan on looking for a therapist, and I had X, Y, and Z going on with me, and it sounds very similar to what you've been going through. And so that is, a reason, why I'm suggesting it. And if you would like, since I am looking for a therapist, we can do this together, and that is a way, too, that you love on your friends. A lot of times people think that everything is supposed to be yes and so nice, and not to push you and not to challenge you. But a lot of times we need that so that we can grow. You don't grow without those challenges or with someone holding you accountable. And so hopefully that helped as well.
Absolutely. I wanted to just chime in for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
One of those, relationship things too, if someone is dealing with mental illness, that other person just educating themselves on that illness, right?
Yes.
That plays a huge role in someone's therapy journey, because understanding what they are going through, right? And really just trying to take out the person and dealing with the illness. Because I think as humans, right, we tend, if our feet get stepped on, or if we're offended, then we tend to attack the person, and we really don't look at the illness, right? So if you are with someone, in a relationship with someone who is struggling or dealing with a mental illness, really just try to educate yourself on that illness to really see what they are going through, right? One of the things that I practice, and I often even tell my clinicians to practice, instead of just trying to diagnose someone, ask someone, what is your story, right? What's going on with you? Because that can really get to the root of a lot of problems, because a lot of things are underlying issues, right? Maybe it could be childhood trauma that we put at the back of our mind and we never really dealt with, or maybe we're hurting because of whatever issue that we never dealt with, right? But if you understand the illness versus the person, I think that we can be more helpful with someone that's dealing with a mental diagnosis.
I will also say with that, work with people who are willing to work with themselves, but don't allow someone to abuse you because they have a diagnosis. So we talked about people manipulating people because they know their diagnosis. Don't let the person with the diagnosis manipulate you, right? Yes, I deal with depression. Yes, I deal with anxiety. That does not give me the right to be abusive. That does not give me the right to be rude. That does not give me the right to put you down. That does not give me the right to harm you simply because I'm hurting, right? I can come and ask you for help, and it doesn't mean I'll always get it right. I was in a conversation with someone the other day, and I was snarky. If you know me, you know I have a smart mouth, right? And I was super snarky and attitudinal in that conversation, and they didn't deserve that. They never said anything, and we got off the phone, and I kind of kept it moving, and I had my own reality check. Right. And so I had to go back and call and say, you know what? I acknowledge my behavior. It has nothing to do with you. Right. And I apologize because you did not deserve that, regardless of what I'm dealing with. That is a person I can maintain healthy relationship with. But if people aren't willing to do that, and it's your fault, and it's what you did, and you made me, you have to also love people enough to walk away from them.
That's true. That is true.
You have to love yourself enough to not be abused just because someone else is hurting. So
right.
I got to love me well, but you have to love you well too. And if you loving me well compromises how you can love yourself, then that's not a love you need.
Mm-hmm. That's so good. Thank you, for saying that, because that's something that I also wanted to, touch on with that, with navigating, dating someone with mental illness, because it is important, as you, the partner, to be able to support them in this. And honestly, when I was asked that question, from my friend, I was just like, I never really thought about it, but I would suppose it's what you would do in a healthy relationship. You would be very present. You would be intentional. You would put in the work. You would make the investment into your relationship. And that's what we should be doing in healthy relationships. But the thing is that we are so used to, being able to get away with being raggedy. That's why I love that word, being raggedy. And everyone, was raggedy at their own times, but we're so used to getting away with being that way, or half, doing things and it being acceptable. And so since that's the case, when it comes to dealing with someone who needs a little bit more attention, an area of your relationship that needs a little bit more attention, it's a big deal. And it's just like, it really isn't. It's what you would do if you love someone. It's what you would do if you were investing into this person. You would take out the time to get to know what they have going on. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's appreciated when you have something going on with you and you share that with, your partner, and they go the extra mile. And the next time you talk to them, they don't research whatever it is that you had going on. That is the person that I would want to be with, and needs to be in my life, because so many times we have people in our life and all they're good for is nothing really, that they just come and take, I mean, when you, just to be real, that's what I'm going to do, is be real.
That was real.
They just got their hand out. You know what I mean? They just got their hand out. And it's just like, this is not good. And you don't want it to get to the place where you're really down in the dumps and you really need someone, and you turn around and it's just like everyone that you've kept around you doesn't got nothing. They don't have anything for you. They don't want to support you. They don't want to love on you. They just want to come and show up for their gift, to take from you. And that is something. So I appreciate you saying that, Kristen, that yes, sometimes you can get manipulated by the person, who's going through different things, because they're just like, oh, I just throw my illness out there and be like, well, I'm suffering from this. It's just like, okay.
And that's why you should go to therapy, but don't do that again. Okay.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Just keep it, just keep it funky with them. You know what I mean? Because it's just like, I'm here to love you and to help and be supportive, but you also have to help and support yourself. And so that's another reason that you might want to educate yourself, so that you can know when you're getting played, and that's the way that you get to be accountable, for your experiences in life and the relationships that you have. And so I think that that's awesome. Did anyone have anything else to add about advocating?
One more. Oh, I was just gonna say one more thing really quickly to that. Also, ask a person what they look like when they're not well. Like, let them give you the roadmap. I tell people I had a guy ask me that once. No one had asked that in a dating relationship. I was like, that's a damn good question, right? He said, when you are in this place, what does that mean for you? Like, what does that look like? What are you feeling? How are you behaving? So that while you may not recognize it immediately, I now got a little roadmap to be like, hey, shawty, hey, you're going in a direction. Right. Like, what do we need to do to course correct? So ask people, what do you look like when you're not doing good? What do you look like when you're spiraling? Whatever the case may be, so that they can also help you love them well.
Right. That was really good. Denise?
And I think one of the things you have to do, be careful, because, as Black women, we are Captain Save-A-Holes, okay? Let's just put it out there. We gonna save the world. So we have to be very careful not to mix it up with your personal well-being versus someone else's needs. If you're constantly dating people that have a mental health issue, you got to stop and check yourself. Okay. Now, maybe it's countertransference. Okay. Maybe you just picking up whatever's going on with the other person, but maybe it's something going on with you. You know, is your self-esteem, is it beginning to drop? Because these are the only type of people you're dealing with, you know. In my friendship pool, I made it my own that I can only deal with one person at a time that has emotional issues, because it was beginning to be too much for me in my personal life and outside work. So only one person at a time. So I'm like, girl, you know what? You're gonna have to call the talk doc. You know, let me refer you to somebody. Oh no, girl, I just want to ask. No,
right.
I got one person I'm dealing with right now.
Said you wear
that's
me out.
the way I do it, because you have to safeguard yourself. You have to safeguard your heart, your mind, your body, and your spirit. Because whatever you let into those ears and into your heart, it infiltrates all over you.
That's true.
So we have to be very careful.
You know, that's true. Someone said, "Woo, take those capes off, ladies." Now that is very true, because you will do that and just completely neglect your mental health. You know, completely neglected. It's just like, oh, okay, I can run myself into the ground, but I'm too busy trying to save you. No, you need to save yourself, you know, as well. That's what that mental health is about. That mental health check, you know, check in with yourself to make sure that you're good, that you're even positioned. You know, you might always be there for someone. You might say, you know what, today I can't go. You know, today, you know, I'm going through some things and I need to deal with it within myself, because I might turn around and give you some bad advice because I'm a mess today. You know, so it's like, you don't want my help
for that. I say I don't have the capacity for that right now.
Well, you know, I always say have three good friends. When I say good friends, 3 good friends that will tell you the truth, and nothing but the truth. Even when you don't want to hear the truth. If all 3 of them is telling you the same thing and they don't even know each other, check yourself.
Something's right.
Please check yourself. Because so often we just ignore all the obvious. Girl, you still okay. Oh no, he just fine. You know, he just had a bad day. So he blew up at the bar when we was out. He came and dragged me out because he snatched my hair, you know, out in public, because he didn't mean it. He was just drunk. No, when 3 people is telling you and they don't know each other and they telling you the same thing and they don't even know nothing about that partner, you might want to stop, cease, and decease that person. Just X them out. So I'm just telling you, because we can get caught up in other people's mess and we become messed up.
And with that, I will say this, and this is in particular for women right now in this moment. A lot of people are worried about being chosen, right? Who gonna pick me? Who gonna choose me? Who's gonna be my babe? Who's gonna whatever? If you choose yourself every day, you are always chosen.
You were always chosen, exactly.
Better decisions about who else you allow to choose you. I'm not waiting to be chosen by anyone, because Kristen chooses Kristen 10 out of 10 times. Every morning, I wake up picking me. So I'm not worried about if anyone else is picking me. I've been picked. I know I'm delightful. And it's not predicated upon anyone else's choices. And so because I have this habit of loving me really, really well, I am able to better recognize when other people aren't serving me love. So I can walk away, because I only want to go in places where love is being served. But if you are deprived of love because you're not choosing you first and you don't even know what it feels like, then you don't know what other people are serving you. It's harder to recognize because you haven't had it. I'm very familiar with love. And so when you are serving whatever, I don't care how fine you are, I don't care how much money you got, I don't care how much baby girl, you this, that, whatever. I'm not your baby girl, because that's not how I'm treated. I'm my baby girl. Baby girl is treated well. Here's a roadmap to follow if you would like to join in on the party. If you don't want to, you're not a bad person. You're just not a good person for me.
No, preach. 100%.
I'm just reading all these chats, and you know, all these people in these chats are just blowing up. They like, pick me, culture. Choose yourself. Most of these folks can't handle the truth. That part, girl, they're awesome. You guys are awesome out there. Keep these here cats coming.
Yes, no, definitely. No, I was reading that same thing too. It's the pick-me-shas, and it's like, it doesn't help. It really doesn't help because, you'll see it and you're like, you'll hear other women, I know you were speaking about, women, but you'll see other women that just, they're joining the party to just put themselves on the back of the shelf someplace, and their concerns to, that they do have, just putting that behind everybody else. And it's just like, that is not your road to happiness. We do have to be honest. A lot of times people are not thinking about that in their relationships, that sometimes that causes them some depression and anxiety and different things, because they have anxiety about not being picked. And just, as women, as you're growing up, you hear the different things, from the older women, in your life, or even the ladies at church, that might be like, oh, you're 30 and you're not married. Oh girl, your eggs is, like, you need to go ahead and get a man, or, just go ahead.
I mean, like, you 50 and married and not happy. Now what?
Exactly. And that is the truth. And that is the truth. And I think that, contributes to a lot of the stresses for a lot of ladies as well, and their own mental health, because they're out here doing all these different things so that they can secure a man, getting fake buds and getting, we talked about that on one of these weeks for our confidence show. And there's a lot of women, getting implants, getting fake buds. And there's nothing wrong with making adjustments if that's what you want to do for you, if that's what makes you happy. But deciding that you're going to do that and risk your life, to look a certain way so that you can get chosen, mental health check needs to happen. And it needs to happen soon. And you need to have 3 real ones, like Denise said, around you to tell you, baby girl, like, you are whole and complete and bomb all right now, as is. God created you, and he didn't make a mistake. He didn't make a mistake, for you to feel that the only reason or the only way that you're going to be able to have a relationship, be loved, create a family, is to reconstruct yourself, and not for the better. Just okay, what you want? You want bigger boobs? You want bigger booty? I'm gonna do it, and it's just like, no, honey, like, that's gonna lead to some other issues, later on down the line, because you don't feel that way, like, you are not loving, yourself. You're not choosing you, as Kristen said. You got to choose you. And I love that, because I think I have heard that somewhere else too, is that if you choose you every day, you're always chosen, and, I have conversations with my mom all the time. Like, I know I be getting on her nerves. She's like, girl, you so picky. And this is now, like, listen, I'm not about to just be in some relationship just for kicks, I'm just not, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to be switching up and changing this and changing that, I did that. I was in a relationship and I never thought I would, be that person. But, it was a serious relationship. And I just felt like, call me origami, because I feel like I was just bending every which way, transform. I'm like, listen, this is not me. This is not being true to myself, and, as, you realize that and how important it is to love and accept yourself or who you are, you just be a lot, happier, and of course you still want a relationship and to have that partner, but approaching it, with a healthier mindset helps you, like a few of you have already said, select better, select a person that is going to be a good partner for you and is actually going to love on you. Because if you don't know that, you won't recognize it when the abuse is going to happen, or just an unhealthy, toxic relationship is around the corner, with that person, because you don't know. You don't love yourself. You're not aware. You haven't been honest, with you. And so we have to do that. So thank you so much for sharing that. And
so often, Yvonne,
yes, ma'am.
This is a microwave society now. Everybody wants instant gratification.
Mm-hmm.
And with children being removed from families at an early age, their families being dismantled. Often they don't have those role models. They're put into group homes, foster homes, places that maybe other people don't care about them as much. Now, I was a licensing worker, so I know there is some great homes, not just good homes, but great homes. I've also done adoption, so I know for a fact there's some great people out there. But then on the other side, there's some people that's just in it
for the
to
check.
win it for themselves. Okay. I won't say that word, the C word, but the check word, but in it to win it for themselves.
Yes.
And so when you do grow up and you start learning about yourself, I always say keep a village around you, because often women get in relationships and they become isolated. It's just about me and my man. You done dropped all your friends that you used to hang out with. Girl, I can't talk. He at home. Wait a minute. You can't talk on the phone. Don't you pay that bill?
Girl, not no more.
I respect, but don't you pay that bill? Okay.
Yeah.
You can talk on the phone. Anytime somebody do not want you having conversations with someone else, and everyone that you hang out with, oh, they just want me because I'm fine, or they just problems. Your friends are all troublemakers, and they just all filling your head up, making you think that you a big shot. You ain't all that. That's a problem.
Yeah, no, very true. Very true.
That's a problem. So, ladies, don't worry about it. When your turn to get a man, you're going to get one. I know everybody trying to have a baby by the time they 24.5 years of age and have their house set up and this and that. You know what? Enjoy your life. Slow down.
Right. It's true.
Just slow down.
It's true.
Because you're all beautiful women. And you know what? We're built differently. We have different attributes. We have different things to bring to the plate that makes us wonderful as a Black society, Black women. And we're just beautiful overall. We're a beautiful race. Enjoy, embrace yourself, embrace what God has given you, and just slow down a little bit. And stay off these websites talking about, I'm going to make this dollar. I got this hustle. Those hustles sometimes can be a little overwhelming, and that can trigger a whole lot. So
what hustle are you talking about?
Slow down. We all want to hustle, but don't over hustle yourself.
Oh man, that's interesting. I think that last year, we mentioned that when we were talking about these stats and mental health, but I think that last year, just the pandemic and it took a year, of people's lives. A lot of people felt, because we didn't know what was going on, so we didn't use it. Some did, but a lot of us didn't use that year, to better ourselves. We gained weight, we were separated from folks. We were getting a little concerned because everybody, who is single is getting older, and so, everybody hits up the sites, that's how this all started. As I started with virtual first dates, because people still wanted to be connected and still wanted to try and find, somebody, and they didn't want the pandemic to stop that, because everyone is on, this race. More so the women, because we're like, okay, we need to get married before a certain time. I'm going to meet somebody, but people was having babies in the pandemic. People was getting married in the pandemic real quick in months. And I think that, it is kind of either telling you something about yourself that either before maybe you had some hangups of why you couldn't go ahead and just be in a relationship and make a situation work, or it was telling you that, as well, that maybe there's some time that you need to take out to work on yourself, and so thank you, Denise, for saying that and mentioning, those things, because it's very important for us to understand that you need to be healthy and whole. You don't need to just go out there picking a person just so that you can say, I'm married, child. I'm married, and then you get into that relationship. You don't know how to be a wife, to that partner. He don't know how to be a husband. Y'all just bought the dream, and got sold on a lie, and so it's very important. Same thing for the men who said I was married now. Exactly. And it's important to be able to be healthy and whole, so that when you have these children, if you're going to have them, that you bring them into an environment that is not dysfunctional. Because a lot of us, especially in our community, have experienced that, or know someone that came from a broken home, and it's just like you could have avoided it by working on yourself and taking care of your mental health, because a lot of people out here dating someone who is not healthy mentally at all.
Or you are someone that someone else is dating that's not mentally well.
Exactly. And they sticking it out. They just sticking it out with you, and you're ruining their life, and it's just, well, in some cases, you are, and that's just,
no, you're right. No, you're absolutely right.
That's just because, you're being selfish in the moment, because you're thinking like, okay, well, I want someone, and that's fine, but do the work. We all have to do the work and find someone to help you do the work. And so that is, we're going to close on out. I wanted us to kind of talk about if Kristen, you, any of you ladies, where we can go, through and just give us some resources of where people can find help if they need help and they don't know where to look, they don't know where to go. Where can they get some help? Kristen, you can go ahead and take it first, and then just give us, one or two, and we can go through the other ladies for them to let us know a site or two, and then we'll go ahead and try and add that to the end. On the video, in the comments, so that everyone, if they're watching this later, then they have access, to find those resources. So yes, Kristen.
So if you want to go on a self-care journey, self-care, remember, is a part of mental wellness. And it's not something you do once or twice. It's something you do every single day. Doesn't have to cost money. It's about investing in your own personal joy and well-being. I actually wrote a book called The Black Girl's Guide to Self-Care. So it's a 30-day journal situation. And at the end of it, you create your own self-care plan. So you can find it on Amazon, The Black Girl's Guide to Self-Care by Kristen Hemingway. So that's one resource. If you're interested in a self-care journey, but you don't really know where to start, or what you're doing isn't working for you, I think it's a great tool. I also have a podcast by the same name, The Black Girl's Guide to Self-Care. And then beyond that, therapyforblackgirls.com. Bomb website. She also has a podcast. Her name is Dr. Joy. She is amazing Black woman. Tons of resources, blogs. Again, everything on our website, even a guide on how to find a therapist. If you've realized you need to look for one, she has some really cool steps that can help you navigate through that process. So
that's awesome. And then Kristen, we'll go ahead and as we're doing that, we're going to close out. So go ahead and provide us with how to contact you as well.
Hey, literally just put it in the comments. You can follow me on Instagram, Black Girl Self-Care. If you want to do some coaching around self-care, I am available for self-care coaching. I've been doing that for the last 5 years. So we can help you. You need some personal help walking through that as well. But Black Girl Self-Care Revolution.
Thank you. And then Miss Brittany Renee, if you can tell us about where, people can get help who are looking for help, and then let us know where they can find you and the services that you provide.
Well, there are a lot of resources locally that I think that a lot of people just really don't know about, right? So just really looking for those local resources in your community can be very helpful. Here in Arizona, I definitely do that a lot with, my clients. I'm also in the process of revamping my website now, because I do a lot of personal development coaching, and that is BrittanyRenee.com. But I know someone mentioned Psychology Today. There's some great therapists on Psychology Today. And then, because we are talking also about relationships, my sister is a relationship and empowerment coach at Lacey Leonard.
Lacey.
Yeah. So, she has a husband who unfortunately suffers from CTE. And so, Miss Denise, I heard you, talk about, the brain and all that stuff. So definitely would like to the two of you together. But there's a lot of different resources out there. So you can go to BrittanyRenee.com. My book as well, Putting on Face, is on Amazon. After each chapter, you can relate everything back to yourself. I talk about identity issues, daddy issues, those type of things, and really just doing the work, But I can also be reached at Brittany Renee 247 on Instagram. So however I can be a help, please reach out.
Yes. And last but not least, Ms. Denise Lancaster Young, if you could share some resources and how we can get in contact with you and the services that you provide.
Okay, you can get in contact with me at dlyoung622@gmail. I'm not on Instagram. I'm still a little old school. I'm slow to move on that. But I'm sure these young ladies will get me up to date after today.
We know we got to get you back into your old Instagram or get you a new one.
Yeah, that's true. I am locked out.
Yes, and then the resources that you services you provide.
Yes, the resources. I would say go to your county, whatever county you live in. I'm in Fresno County in California. Go to your county website. They have a long list. I love the Black Girls Therapy. I'm on that list as well. For myself, I'm not taking clients right now. I'm on a little sabbatical for a couple months. So I've removed my name off all the lists. So I will start back in January. And then at that time, I will I'll give it back, but I'll put my name back out there. So, but I recommend you going through your county website. If you are looking for someone of color, you can still go on Psychology for Today. And you can look for people that look like you, because I know that's important. That's important to me, is often I notice clients feel more comfortable when they walk in a room with someone that looks like you.
Right. That's very true. Very true. Because they're like, oh, they're going to get it,
Yes. And
they hope,
and if they don't fit, you go to the next person. It doesn't cost a thing to go and interview someone to see if you're going to be a good fit. Like Kirsten said, that is the most important thing. And I agree. And likewise, as a clinician, if I don't feel like you're going to be a good fit for me, I let you know that I don't think that I'm able to do the work for you with you. So I'm going to recommend you to someone else.
Yes.
And I try to be really authentic on that, because I think it's important, because so often people will take on areas that they're not trained for. I work with trauma victims, and that's what I enjoy doing.
Well, we thank you. Yes, definitely. Well, we thank you so much. Thank each and every one of you. You guys brought so much information to the show and just your insight. We appreciate what you're doing in the community, and just being, that advocate, for us, and that you have these resources that, that you're a part of the resources that's helping us heal. So thank you so much for that. And it was another great show. Thank you all in the audience. Make sure that you tune in. We got 2 more episodes we have coming up. Black women's relationships with other Black women. And our last show will be Ask a Black Mom. And so we're going to talk to some moms. Even my mother will be one of the mothers on the show. So make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. And we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.